Welcome to the Mandalore podcast with your host, Laura. In today's episode, I want to share some insights on the power of opportunities, how you can seek and identify them, as well as how to best prepare yourself for when they do appear. Opportunities can be defined as a chance that something could happen, a moment where something is deemed possible, an opening that identifies when something is available, a break that gives you a sudden advantage, and a prospect which signals increased chances of success in the future. Everything I just mentioned requires one simple yet very important recipe, and that is curiosity. So without curiosity, you may become oblivious to these opportunities because in essence, you're not really paying attention to them. You're not directly seeking them. And so we often become so busy with reality that our imagination just tends to dim itself. And we tend to, we fail to ignite that little light bulb that we all have upstairs. Well, some of us have LED lights, I guess, but you get the idea. The truth is, though, that oftentimes opportunities come disguised as something else. And that is what I want to elaborate on today. My point is that curiosity is important because it fuels creativity. And with creativity, you learn to think outside the box. So when you're curious about your environment, you are more present, you're invested in the moment, and you learn to identify patterns that you may not recognize otherwise. So by connecting the dots, you learn to better identify these opportunities when they best present themselves. I'll give you an example. So about 10 years ago, back when I was in college, I always sought out opportunities whenever I could. So there was a veteran program that allowed us to create our own startup per se. So we did that for a few weeks. We would go all the way to Brooklyn to, learn everything. And at the end, we would pitch our startup to a bunch of investors at one of the corporations in Manhattan. And so the day of the presentation, the day that we had to pitch, I remember, you always put your bio up front. So when it was our turn, I had to briefly explain, I was in the Navy, I studied cryptology and blah, blah, blah. So after our pitch, we had a small booth at the end of the room and everybody, people would come over and say, hey, nice job, great presentation. And there was a couple of people came over and they were like, hey, so you studied cryptology. Well, there's going to be a conference not too far from here at one of the tech companies, one of their buildings, and you guys should come. So I looked at my co-founder and we were like, you know what? Why don't we just show up and see what it's all about? We show up, and when I tell you this room was completely full of techies, nerds everywhere. I mean, the room was like maybe at least 200 to 300 people. It was packed. So the presentation started, and of course, it was about blockchain. Now, remember, this was back in 2015, 2016. So the whole concept of crypto and blockchain and even Bitcoin was still very fresh, very new. So these were all technically early adopters, right? I had no clue what it was about, but it did seem super interesting. And at the end, everybody was amazed at all of this technology, all of the advancement and everything that was going on. So what I ended up doing was like, wow, that sounds super interesting. And at the time, if you're familiar with Bitcoin, for example, at the time, one Bitcoin was about like $400, $400. And, when you look at it today, it has reached, I think it peaked at 100K. So imagine, right? These are people who were, I'm sure all of them are super rich by now. Not me. I was a struggling student. I couldn't invest like they were. They were all tech people. So, but you get the idea. This is an example of had I not gone to this conference, I wouldn't have learned about crypto early on. I wouldn't have learned about Bitcoin, and I wouldn't have told some of my friends. So I, told my friends about this thing, and some of them ended up investing on it. So this is an example of opportunities that show up, and you don't even realize that there are opportunities until even years later when things are validated and you see the value in them. So sometimes opportunities show up and they may not seem as opportunities, but that's the whole idea behind being curious. And the whole idea is to be open to what is out there, being open to what's possible, because it could one day change your life. Now, don't get it twisted. I became privy to this information, not because they came to my school to give me a presentation. I actually had morning to night classes. I was extremely tired. I was attending one of the most rigorous universities in the country and maybe the world. And in between that, I still wanted to learn new skills. I was still curious. So I would take that trip to Brooklyn every week to build a startup because I felt like the value was immense. It was absolutely invaluable. I spent countless hours tired, hungry, making sacrifices, and believe me, I wanted to give up. And in the end, I was given access to this conference, not because I was in the corner, he wasn't giving out flyers to everybody that just passed by. It was because he learned something about me, he was curious about it himself, and he extended the invitation. Believe me, in a different time, I would have been too tired to attend. I remember during those times, I was always, every time I left class, I would always treat myself to a mofongo from Tropical Sensation on the Upper West Side. I could have just thought about that and say, you know what, I'm good, I'm just going home. In the end, I decided to stay, I decided to show up. Let's be real, not every opportunity is going to be like this. But knowing that these types of conferences existed was something that was new to me. And I was exposed to that at the time. Whether it was about Bitcoin or crypto, it didn't matter because I learned that, hey, there are different conferences that I could attend. Let me go do a simple search. What else can I learn? I could learn about real estate, other types of investing. Even within real estate itself, for example, there's different types of real estate investing. There are different things that you can find, and all you have to do is be curious about it. Now, let's get into how you can become better at spotting these opportunities through the power of exposure. Whenever you encounter a new opportunity, it is important for you to stay curious. It doesn't matter that you don't know much about it. The goal is really to accept the challenge and take it. You have to remember that opportunities are going to show up in different forms, in different ways, so you have to stay alert. It could be something that you hear in a conversation with a friend. It could be something that you see on TV, on social media, in a group that you're in. Just always keep that in mind. Keep your eyes and ears open so that whenever you hear these opportunities, you can jump at them and take advantage of those. Never assume that you're not worthy of them. That's another thing, because I know sometimes you say, well, I don't really know much about it, so I probably won't even, it doesn't make sense for me to go to some event or to attend any course or workshop. That's not necessarily true. A lot of the times, that's the whole point of them, right? So that people who are not necessarily aware of them, they can learn more from them. The key here is that you have to jump at the opportunities that come to you, because at the end of the day, you don't necessarily know when you're going to find those opportunities again. Who knows when there's going to be a similar event? They may happen every week, but what if they don't? It's like when your favorite artist is having a concert, and you miss that one. You're like, oh, I'll just see them again in the next one. And then you find out that they're retired, and guess what? There's no more concert. And now you start streaming their music ever since. So don't shut yourself down from opportunities that could potentially change your life. Almost every opportunity I've ever encountered required me to take some risk and sacrifice. So always think of where it could lead you. And sometimes it will lead you to higher returns in the future, because oftentimes we tend to discount ourselves from those possibilities of trying something new, when the goal should be, I'm going to learn something new. I am going to expand my knowledge somehow, and this will be a stepping stone for whatever comes next. Always think of these new opportunities as a stepping stone. When I became a product designer, I started by making little to no money, right? I graduated college, I studied psychology, which was great. I was happy about that, but then I knew that I wanted to join the tech world. and I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I took some coding classes, I did some projects and everything, but coding was just not my thing. I love the idea of working on front end of everything, of, applications, but I just loved design. And that's how I started. I started by making a compromise, sacrificing myself by joining projects that didn't pay as well. But the experience and the level of connections that I got from them was immense. The amount of knowledge that I gained from working on an incubator, that's why I took that risk. I worked the long hours. I used to commute like an hour and a half to work, then home, and it was a lot. I did that for months. And it was such a rewarding feeling. It was such a validating feeling because all of the hard work that I put in was worth it. Now, imagine if I would have just said, I'm not really going to be making that much money, so I think I'm just going to skip it. I'm just going to continue searching for the right job, the right opportunity. And you could do that, obviously. But again, never discount an opportunity just because it's not as flashy or as shiny as you want it to be. Sometimes that could lead you to the even better place. Attend events that are not your typical type of events. You'd be surprised too how you could be exposed to not only different technologies, different industries, but also different types of people who can connect you to a vast amount of opportunities. These are people that you could learn from, that could even become your mentor. Expand your reach, expand your network. Something else you could do is take courses, take different workshops. Actually, I have a story about a workshop that I took many years ago, which maybe I'll talk about that in another episode. But yes, attend workshops. Find yourself always looking and seeking new things to learn. Open yourself to new possibilities, knowing that you could potentially be somewhere else in 2-3 months, in 6 months, a year. Always take those opportunities and see what you can learn from it. What experience could I take away from learning about this? How can this be a benefit to me? And challenge yourself each and every time by attending these events, meeting new people, talking to different personalities or people in different industries that could potentially help you open your eyes to different perspectives, different ways of thinking. Again, it's the power of exposure, of putting yourself out there, being curious, having a curious mindset so that whenever something shows up in your front door, not even your front door, obviously, you have to go out there and seek it. But when you notice it and you recognize it, you take action. That's what's going to change your life trajectory by taking those little simple actions. You have to make this a habit because that is how you'll change your life. That is how you're going to change your mindset over time. Whenever you're in these rooms, pay attention, be present. Listen intently. It doesn't help that you show up to these places and all you're doing is scrolling through social media, not paying attention. People are walking by, making connections, and you're in a corner. Maybe your feet hurt. Sure, I understand. But you have to make the effort. It's not about just showing up either, right? Like you have to be present. You have to listen. You have to ask those questions. You have to be curious. You have to walk away saying, okay, I'm going to go to this place. I'm going to learn a thing or two. I need to learn at least 1, 2, 3 things. And those are going to be my takeaways. I need to walk away with something that is actionable that I can walk away with and say, okay, when I get home, I'm going to look this up or I'm going to contact this person. I'm going to sign up for this course. There's something in there that you have to take action on and hold yourself accountable because sometimes we say, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then we never do anything. Hold yourself accountable. Again, this is your life. So be there for yourself and show up for yourself. You're going to be grateful for that in the future. Increasing your exposure to opportunities is about being there, being active, engaging with the world, engaging with the people around you, knowing to keep an open mind, being open to other perspectives. And the more you present yourself and expose yourself to these different ideas and people and thoughts, the higher the likelihood that those opportunities are going to align with your life. And there's nothing more rewarding than that. I think the important thing about opportunities is that way back when think about your parents and grandparents, they didn't have access to a lot of this stuff. Like I mentioned, now I could go in online and do a simple search about conferences in my area. Now, all it takes is for you to seek opportunities, for you to put yourself out there and learn about these different opportunities, for you to meet people who could provide you those opportunities, for you to add value to someone so that they can also give you value in some way by giving you access to opportunities. There is no limit to the amount of opportunities that you could find out there. Now, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that in order to take advantage of these opportunities, you're going to have to take some risks. So risks help you achieve success. It will help you. You will fail sometimes, right? But at the end of the day, without risk, you won't know whether you'll be successful or not. And so you have to become comfortable with taking risks so that you can lead yourself down a path where you may not otherwise have taken. Some of these risks need to be calculated because I think I talked about this in my previous episode about identity, but you have to show confidence. You have to show that even if you're not certain about where you're going, you're confident that no matter where you land, you're going to be able to adapt to those changes. You're going to be able to succeed one way or another. Taking risks makes you resilient. It shows others that you're not afraid, that you're willing to put yourself out there, that you're willing to take, those risks so that you can succeed, that you're willing to show up, that you're not afraid of hard work and dedication. That is how people recognize who is worthy of those opportunities or not. It's the resilience, it's the hard work, the dedication, and the willingness to be adaptable, the willingness to learn. If you have them, you will be set anywhere you go. Make that your goal this year. Decide that you're going to change something, that you're going to seek opportunities. Okay, don't make me leave you homework again. But seek out these opportunities. Don't be afraid to show up. I guarantee you there are people there who have never been to a meeting or a webinar. That's the whole point, right? These are things that invite new people to show up, that become initiations of exposure. It's a way for you to learn about these new concepts, these new ideas. Now, please be careful though. I will say if people are asking you to give them money or to take a trip somewhere and, invest in what are they called? Just be mindful. Just use your judgment. Be very cautious. Do your research. Try to understand what you're doing, where you're going. Take a buddy with you if you're not sure. But the goal is to expand, learn, grow. And life will start changing for you. Most of the opportunities that I've gotten, it's because I took that risk and I took that leap of faith. I showed up somewhere, knowing nobody sometimes. I was curious. I asked questions. I asked for guidance. And when people see that you're really passionate about something, they will want to help you. They will want to show you. Because come on, at the end of the day, we all want to see each other happy, right? We want to see each other grow. We want to see people follow their dreams. That is the point of it all. And in the end, that is what makes a better society. Now, some pointers that I could give you for my own personal experience is whenever you're out thinking about this, and again, always remaining curious. I'm going to hone that down forever in your brain. Always remain curious. But the goal is to, yes, set a goal. Set a goal whenever you're looking for new opportunities. What do you hope to get out of it? Remember, somebody may even ask you those questions when you show up. So be prepared. What are you hoping to get out of this experience? Don't say you're there for the food and the vibes because obviously that's not going to get you anywhere. But just have those questions ready, have a way of explaining that about what is your purpose? Why are you passionate about something? Why are you curious? You don't even have to be passionate. Why are you curious about it? Something that you have to do in return is do your research. Find those events that are, that may pique your interest, that are interesting or sound interesting. And again, try to find things that are outside the box, that are not your typical opportunities or typical events or typical conferences that you would want to attend, typical webinars. And again, this doesn't have to be necessarily about work. It could be about relationships. I remember, and when I lived in the DC area, I didn't have any friends there. I'm like, wow, oh my God, how am I going to meet friends here? It's such a busy city and everybody's new here. Everybody's just moving in from different places and, all over the country. How am I going to meet friends that align with me, right? With my beliefs and my values and all of that. And I ended up going to different meetups. I went to a salsa meetup. So there were a bunch of Latinos there, there were different people. We all had the same thing in common, and it was to dance, right? I ended up going to a Dominican meetup, which was super fun. And I actually have some really good friends from those meetups that I still talk to often. We're really good friends now. Stay open to the possibility of learning more or of putting yourself out there. Believe me, I used to be... my hands will be sweaty, knees weak, palms are heavy. What does Eminem say? I forgot. But that used to be me, shaking in my boots about showing up somewhere by myself, not knowing anyone. But in the end, it all worked out. As long as you keep yourself responsible, obviously, don't go drinking 5-6 tequila shots, you know what I mean? Just stay responsible and stay present and you'll be fine. The next thing is to dress the part. Now, if you know that you're going to go somewhere and this place is, you could tell pretty much by the type of event it is. Use common sense here, but know the dress code, right? Sometimes they tell you a dress code, but it's super important. People will take you seriously based on this simple effort. So look your best, look presentable, don't go there straight from the gym. Unless, it's like a sports thing, I guess. But still, you should still try to look presentable. But yeah, just make sure you do that. If you're going alone, I will say that that's fine. I've done it before. I've been to these places alone. If you don't feel comfortable, take a buddy. Take a friend, say, hey, do you mind coming with me? I'll treat you to dinner. Or if not, something else that I've done is I scope the scene. I show up and maybe there's a bunch of people there, but you can also tell who's there by themselves as well. And that's what I do. I find somebody that I know. I feel like, oh, they seem kind of cool, right? And then you show up and you say, hey, how are you doing? You engage in conversation. And then you find out that they're also there by themselves. And by the end of the evening, you're probably going around you end up going around the room together, meeting other people and engaging in conversation. So again, the whole idea is to keep an open mind and showing up. Trust me, most people attend for the same reason you are attending those places. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't let imposter syndrome get the best of you. Because at the end of the day, we all started somewhere. The people who you see they're experts now, they're very confident, very sure of themselves. They also started from nowhere. They also started from the bottom. And that's what you're doing at that time. So keep trying. Something else that I recommend is to stay in touch with the people you meet. Again, I have made some great friends that way. But at the same time, don't just seek out people just because you need something from them. Be genuine about your interactions, appreciate their willingness to communicate or help you out. That's something to keep in mind. Something that is a pet peeve of mine is people who just reach out to you when they need something and then you never hear from them years and years. So be mindful of that. Appreciate when people are giving you their time and be grateful. So yeah, make it a habit to put yourself out there. Create a goal of attending one event, perhaps every month or every 3 months, however much you can do. And consider it an adventure, You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. Make it an adventure. Make it as something that, hey, I'm learning something new in a month. I'm going to attend this. And believe it or not, I've done so many things that way. There's different websites like Eventbrite. And again, I'm not being sponsored by any of these, so I'm just shouting out stuff that I've done myself that have been pretty cool to do. So I've gone on Eventbrite and found events. Some events are even free. I've gone on Groupon even, and I've said, hey, I have some free time this week. What do I feel like doing? And I'll show up and then there'll be like discount to race supercars. You could find painting events. You could find all kinds of things. I've gone horseback riding. Was I petrified? Scared that this animal was gonna kick me off of course. But I still went. I still enjoy myself. And it's an experience. It's something that I could tell my family, my mom, when she asked me, like, what did you do this weekend? And that's what I tell her. Oh, I went horseback riding. And she's like, oh, wow, interesting, right? So it also gives you things to talk about. So don't ever limit yourself. Always find things to do. Trust me, it will make your life feel so much better. You will feel so fulfilled because you're not just sitting at home every day, just doing the same thing. It's not healthy, right? So I highly recommend that you do that. Celebrate yourself. Be proud that you are putting yourself out there. Treat yourself. And one thing that I tend to do is whenever I'm doing something that's super scary, perhaps, I always treat myself to something. And it could be a dessert, a piece of candy. It could be a meal that I'm like, oh man, I really want sushi today. I did a lot this week. Let me go treat myself to some sushi or whatever, right? Whatever floats your boat. But the whole point is to celebrate yourself, celebrate your wins, celebrate your effort. Don't think that this is something that just comes, right? You're putting a lot of time and effort into putting yourself out there, and it requires you to celebrate that because not everybody can do that. Do what works for you. Do what you can do. Obviously, we all have our limitations one way or another. So whatever you can do or you can afford to do, make sure you do it. Remind yourself that you are able, that you're strong, that you can achieve anything. And all of these little micro events, I'm calling them micro events because they're a big deal, but still, all of these little micro events will eventually just start boosting your confidence. And that's one thing that I will tell you is you could start doing these little things. And sure, when you think of them individually, they are nerve-wracking. You're going to feel sweaty. You may get a headache. That happens to me sometimes when I'm like super stressed about something. But the whole idea is that all of these little things are going to make it a habit that it will make you feel so strong. It will make you feel so confident in the end. You're going to feel so much better. You're going to love the way you feel afterwards because that is the whole point. Life is short. What are you going to do with your life? You may not necessarily be shifting your life. You may not be doing a 180 change, but all of these little micro changes, all of these little micro experiences will eventually show you what you're capable of and show you that you're capable of anything, really. So go out there and get it done, right? Get her done. In conclusion, a curious mindset often leads us to a more open and adaptable approach to life. When you're used to exploring the unknown, you're better equipped to handle change and navigate new situations with a sense of excitement rather than fear. So it's like that show, what do you call it? That game show, Deal or No Deal? Like, well, what's in suitcase number 2? But this time it could be money, love, or even wisdom. Either way, no matter what shows up, no matter what's in the suitcase, you win something. And ultimately, a life lived with curiosity is often a more joyful and fulfilling one. So the constant discovery, learning, the connection with the world around you will bring you such joy and a sense of wonder and excitement to everything that you do, to your everyday experiences. Think of it as constantly opening new doors, new ways of thinking, and each of these will lead you to something new and wonderful. And what a wonderful way to navigate the world, right? Knowing that you have this sense of curiosity where anything could happen. You just have to take those little steps to get there. Think of your life with a sense of wonder, and you will do and achieve wonderful things. That is all for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to the Minalore, and until next time, take care.